and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Allton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Hello again, and welcome to another edition of the Now Woman podcast. Now, today I really wanted to look at the subject of fear. You might be thinking, okay, Tina, why fear, right? And really, I think it's very much fair to say or to think that actually fear is very much part of human condition. And I've personally just gone through a season where I've had to walk certain lines that I was afraid of. I was afraid of not because, oh, I'm fearful, but because I've never been that way before, right? I've never been that way before. And I'm sure that, like yourself, every leader has a time and a season where they have to walk a certain pathway that they've never been before. And that's exactly where I found myself in these past, 2-3 months of intensely walking the journey of my purpose. And so I thought, okay, I think this is actually quite apt for us to look at the subject. Also, because, very soon it's going to be the end of the month. And I don't know about you, but that is halfway. We're more than halfway actually to the month of September. And in about 2 weeks, perhaps, we would be in October. And that means that the year is almost at the end. We're almost at the end of the year. And it's quite natural to begin to think, what have I done this year? I haven't achieved my goals. I haven't been able to do what I set out to do. That is very much natural to feel that way, and even allowing yourself to feel that way sometimes to some extent and actually, get you fearful. So it's quite okay to agree that fear is very much part of our human condition. And I think it's also important to look at it from this perspective. Sometimes you might see a leader who, out there, or a successful person, and think that, well, they have nothing to fear. But that is actually not true, right? Every human being in every generation that has gone before and that is yet to come will go through some challenges. Like our parents, their generation, they had to go through the World War II. My parents, were, born during the World War II. I've gone through the pandemic. My children have gone through pandemic. And I think we've all, at some point, in some ways, have gone through situations and challenges that had brought a little bit of fear, right? And I think it's also important to mention that sometimes fear can be due to a number of things. So I just really, there was an ordinance survey here by the Barna Research Group, which indicated that 4 out of 5 adults face major difficulties in life, and which really concerned them. And it was broken up as finances was 28%, health 19%, career concerns 16%, parenting struggles 11%, family relationships 7%, and accomplishing personal goals at 7%. So the question here is, what your greatest fear may well not be amongst the list that I've put here, but I think it's quite likely, quite possible that you have a concern in another way or another way, shape, or form. And so I think that it's also therefore important and essential to look at the dangers of fear. Fear in itself is not a bad thing. Fear in itself is not detrimental to to your health, or to society. Fear, healthy fear can be good. It can be good. It can actually, bring about change and transformation. And I think as a leader, there definitely will be times and situations that you would, your knees will be knocking, your teeth would be whatever that yours might be. But there would be at some point in your leadership journey where you would have to step up or step out or do something whilst your knees are still knocking together. And so I really want us to look at the destructive effect of fear, right? Fear can cripple you when you allow fear to overtake you, or to have control that it never should have in the first place. Then fear can be very, very detrimental or be destructive. And one of the key things is that um fear actually, again, talking about unhealthy fear here, fear, when it's unhealthy, can breed more fear, right? It can breed more fear. Imagine going to the doctors or your dentist or something, and then you feel like, oh, they're afraid of, what does that do? That puts fear on you, or that can give you concerns. And the same way as leaders, when we're leading from a place of fear, or when we have fear, it only breeds more fear amongst our team, amongst our people, or the community in which we're in, right? And then also, I think that when we're too fearful, it breeds more fear in the sense of that our mind, our thought process, or the whole of our being can then be thrown into this phase and commotion where we're literally afraid. And for some people, it can even then create anxiety, where you're anxious to step out or say this or do this, and that ultimately means that fear can then lead to inaction, where you're afraid to take action, where you don't want to step out, where you don't want to step up, where you lose your confidence, you lose, sight of where you're headed to, you lose focus, you lose the opportunity that is ahead of you. And sometimes you might even lose, the people that have been called to help you or your team, or because nobody wants to follow a leader or work with a leader who's constantly in fear. So it's really, really important that you check, is your fear healthy? Are you allowing fear to take over? Is your fear leading you to not take action? And then you need to actually tell yourself, you know what, I need to do something about this, right? Fear also weakens you. Fear can weaken you. Fear can actually become a debilitating issue or debilitating thing in your life, right? And your emotions can then all be thrown into disarray because you are feeling weak. And when you are in that place of weakness, when you're in that place of fearfulness, your decision making process would be impacted. Your ability to make sound judgment as a leader becomes impacted. Why? Because you feel weak. And when you're weak, it's like when you've got the flu, or when you're not feeling very well, right? You're fogging your head, you're not motivated, you're just not at your optimum in comparison to the time when you perhaps say are feeling very well and very strong in yourself. So when you're fearful and you're weakened, your emotions are weakened, your capacity is weakened, your what do you call it, your mindset, your thought process, your critical thinking, your decision making, your headspace, the entirety of you will be impacted. And it can often, in that fearful place where you're feeling weak, it can actually make you sick, right? Because we know that when we're not happy, when we're not feeling strong in ourselves, our body's made up of so many cells and hormones and toxins and all of these things. So it's really, really important that if you're doing something new, let's say, and of course it's okay to be afraid. Like this year we're gathering 50 global leaders in Cairo, and am I afraid? Absolutely. Have I done this before? Not in the same way. But I can't become crippled by the fear of, oh, I've got to take, 50 women, or I've got to do this, I've got to do that. So again, it's the awareness, having the awareness of, is this fear healthy? And where really is this fear coming? Is this fear coming because like I'm not prepared, like every fear that we have or experience comes from somewhere. So it's really important that you also identify the root cause of that fear, right? And fear really will steal your energy. It really just wastes your time. Why is that? Because again, if you're not taking action, if you're not feeling motivated, if you're not being able to take right decisions or good decisions, strong decisions, leading from a place of fullness rather than a place of weakness, or just, below your capacity, all that effort gets wasted because, like, you're not thinking very clear. So how are you going to communicate effectively to your team? It's very likely that errors would be made. Communication would not be effective. And so all that energy could have been actually put into better use, right? Rather than um again leading from that place of fear, because when you're fearful, it flows into everything. Think of fear as a tea bag, right? The moment it hits water, it begins to affect the water color, and the properties of the water itself. When you put tea bag into cold milk, right, it's very different how it reacts. Again, when you put the same tea bag into cold water, it reacts differently. When you put tea bag into hot water, you see the speed, the acceleration with which it all changes, right? But either way, these are all three different liquids, the same, what do you call it, tea bag, but it's reacted differently. So again, it's good fear, healthy fear versus unhealthy fear. So it's being aware of all of those that helps you, right? And fear can actually stifle your growth. Fear can stop you from reaching the potential that is in you. Fear can actually steal so much from you. Fear will stop you from being able to take that step forward. And fear will tell you that you're not capable. Fear will tell you that you're not good enough. Fear will tell you that there's somebody else better than you. Fear would ask you, who do you think you are? And all of those things. So how then do you deal with fear? Is just acknowledging, okay, I'm afraid. I've not done this before, but and then you begin to look, okay, so why am I afraid? What is the source of that fear? Where is it coming from? Is it healthy? Is it not healthy? And again, it's, recognizing that I cannot let fear affect my decision making. I can't let fear affect who I am or what I'm supposed to do or how I'm supposed to show up, right? You have to uh, be committed to that for yourself, that yes, I acknowledge I'm afraid, but I cannot let that stop me. Okay. And fear is just part of how we grow. It's part of the process. Without fear, it's impossible to actually grow, to expand, to develop, to be better, and all of those things. Every new season, every new level requires a whole new you. And a whole new you can definitely, most assuredly, bring along with it that aspect of fear. And another way to deal with fear is, converting that fear into desire. It's like, okay, If you're afraid of, rejection, then the counteract of that is learn how to connect well with others, because when you connect well with others, it's highly unlikely that you'd be rejected, right? If you're afraid of, oh, I'm not being significant, or I want to be whatever, then the action from that is you have to be a person that desires to serve others. Because when you're serving others, your focus is never on you. And when you're serving others, it's like sowing. When you sow, you reap back. So again, that's just a few tips there. Um, Another thing is, if you give fear all of your attention today, you're literally selling out all of your tomorrow and all the many, many tomorrows that is to come. So you have to be very mindful of how much trade do you want to do? How much, of tomorrow do you want to trade off for today, for the fear that you have today? So yes, it's okay to know, okay, today I'm afraid, but I'm not going to trade in tomorrow. I'm not going to give in my tomorrow for the fear that I have today. And so, it comes down to a choice. Do I want to pay that price? Do I want to really, really sell my future, my tomorrow, by entertaining the fear I have today? And what emotion are you actually also given to that fear that you have, right? Are you actually adding to that emotion? Are you telling yourself, oh yes, I'm so scared I can't do, or how exactly are you handling that fear? One way that, or one thing that has always helped me is having people around me in my life that I can go to and say, no, hey, I've got to do this, but I'm really, this is stretching me. This is out of my comfort zone, and allow them to help me to unpack, the fear or the concerns that I have. And, by allowing myself to go through that process, I'm able to glean from them, hear their own life experiences. And that in itself gives you hope, that inspires you. And by the time you finish that conversation, that fear is gone. You're feeling energized, you're feeling pumped, you're feeling like I can do anything, right? And so I hope that, if you're listening and you're going through a process or a season or time thinking, well, we're almost in October, I don't know what I've done, and that, or anything else, for example, is causing you fear or concern, and you're not allowing yourself to take action, you're not allowing yourself to do what you're supposed to do, to lead as the leader that you're called, then I want to really encourage you. Find somebody you can speak to. People already gone ahead of people who've already done the journey and know what it takes. And then, reach out to them and listen to their life story, listen to their experiences, and see what they share with you, and how that can ultimately just change your mood, change your mindset, change your environment, and change so much more for you. So, or you might say, well, I don't know anybody that I can really, really open up to. We're here for you. And we would love to be able to, do that for you and with you. So by all means, you can reach out to us. But whatever you do, always, always, always remember, fear is healthy, but it's what you do with it that makes it what do you call it, unhealthy. And if you want to think of fear as fire, fire in itself is great. Fire creates warmth, it gives us heat. Fire helps us to cook. Fire, powers our homes. I mean, fire is great. There's so many things you can do. You can roast marshmallows on an open fire, log fire, whatever fire that you're accustomed to. Fire in itself is good, but it's when it's out of control that then it becomes disastrous. When it's out of control, that's when it can burn a house down. It can burn everything literally in its way. So I hope that you will allow yourself this moment. I want you to pause right now in this moment and recognize fear is okay. It's good. Healthy fear is good. Fire in itself is good. It's when it's out of control. When you let your fear get out of control, then it becomes a real challenge, and it will steal everything that is meant to help you to be all that you're meant to be. So I hope this has been helpful, And if there is anything else you'd like to add to it, you maybe have experience of fear, a time that you're afraid to do something, a time that you're afraid, whatever that is. I would love to hear your story. I would love to hear, how you pushed past your fears in order to get to where you are today. So if that's you, reach out to us or email us or just find us on social media and tell us your story. And until next time, remember to look at your fear and push through. And remember that you have everything it takes in you to become all that you're meant to be. Until then, take care. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Allton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.